think this is definitely something that is very new and that hasn't been done before. Yes.
I think what we're doing right now is the biggest leap forward in the development of Appwrite.
Eldad's ideas are pretty crazy.
We want the developers to have a frictionless process from idea to having something in production.
We've noticed that for a lot of developers, it's really, overwhelming to manage all their integrations.
We didn't want them to jump around between different products, different tools.
Multiple billing cycles, API keys, database keys.
So Appwrite has always been about really simplifying the backends, and with this move,
we're completing the biggest missing piece that Appwrite developer had.
It just really feels like a stepping stone into a new Appwrite era.
The fact that we're doing that is going to be a big deal, and it's going to be a completely different experience for people.
Yeah, I would say we're now backend as a service, but with as well.
All right, welcome everybody. So this is Init 3, I believe, if I got that correctly. We are going to have the CEO of Appwrite, Eldad. We're going to talk about a lot of fun stuff here. We're going to ask him a lot of questions, and he is our special guest today. So before we get started, as people start tuning in here, I want to recap what Init is. I want to recap today's announcement, give you all a quick summary, and then we'll just highlight how this stream's going to go. So there will be a Q&A at the end. So any questions you have for Eldad or personal grievances, write those down. Get ready to put those in the comment section. He'll see them, and then we're just going to address them. So we're going to have some fun here. So Init, for anybody that doesn't know what this is, Init, I might have Eldad actually explain the origins of it, but essentially it's Appwrite's launch week. It's a celebration. I just call it a launch week because this is where we announce a bunch of stuff. But because we're an open source community, we build things with our engineering team. We spend a lot of time working behind the scenes and with the open source community, and this is our chance to celebrate. So we have 5 days of events, 5 days of announcements. I think it's actually 4 this time around, but we announce something new and we just like to hang out. So that's kind of the idea of Init. And today, a lot of you have probably already seen the announcement. This was Appwrite Sites. So real quick, going to recap it. There's videos out on YouTube already about it. We have a bunch of articles that we just released today. But Appwrite is now in the hosting space. So this means that we are now competing with companies like Vercel, Netlify, Cloudflare. We're in this industry now, and we're really excited. We're about to make some waves. And this is cool because now we're not just in the backend space. We're now basically completing the entire cycle. So that's the big announcement for today. I'm excited to have some fun with this. I know we had a slight delay in the actual release of the product. Again, we'll pick on Eldad for that. We'll see what he has to say about that. But yeah, let's just bring him on stage, the CEO of Appwrite. So Eldad, welcome. Excited to have you here.
Hey, Dennis. I'm so excited. I think this is my first time on our YouTube channel.
I think so too. Yeah. So, Eldad, real quick. I mean, I don't think you need an introduction. I'm just going to leave it there. People can ask questions later. But this is something, specifically sites. This is something that we've talked about for a long time. When I interviewed at Appwrite back in August of 2023, you mentioned this in my final round. I think it was like round 4 or 5, and you mentioned this idea of hosting. And I was already pretty excited about what Appwrite was doing. But when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, wow, we're going to really take a lot of market share as far as like the areas that we play in. So this is very personal for me. I'm super excited to finally see it come to fruition almost a year and a half later. Like, tell me about the idea behind it. Like, how do you feel that this moment's finally here?
I'm super excited. How long was it when we actually talked about it in the first time?
It's about a year and a half, maybe a little bit more than that. It was August 2023, so...
Oh, time flies fast when you're having fun. That does seem like a long time ago. I think the idea for Init actually started way, way before. I think it was like literally at this, not Init, sorry, for sites. It was like really at the start of Appwrite. I think with everyone that I talked with, our vision was always to kind of have the full cycle of development. And I think Sites is just a natural evolution of that. I mean, it was probably an idea, we didn't think about it as like market share or who are we going to compete with. It was always like the focus on how can we actually have the best developer experience and the best like development life cycle across building an application. And it feels so natural. We just announced it today and I got so many messages from people that are surprised. And I'm like, really, are you guys surprised? Like for me, it was like just the most natural thing. And it's super exciting to get to this state. It was so hard. The team was working so hard. You can probably see on my eyes, like we had a few sleepless nights trying to get to it. But we're super hyped that this day has come.
Yeah, I was messaging you yesterday, and I think part of the team was basically going on a 40-hour or 48-hour code sprint. I know it wasn't 48 hours straight, but it was a lot of work with naps in between, and it's definitely a lot of work to get something like this going. I don't envy your position at this point. See, I'm just making the content. I'm trying to hype it up, but you're doing the actual work with the team.
Yeah, nothing to complain about. We're lucky that we're able to do what we love. So really no complaints. I'm really proud of the team. It's a really good opportunity, at the start of this stream to say thank you to everyone from engineering, growth, DevRel that have really worked relentlessly in the last few weeks to get to here. And I think, we've been working on Sites like for over a year now, or almost a year. So it wasn't like something that, we just came up with the idea like 2 months ago. Okay, let's build this. We really invested a lot in building a lot of the core technology that allowed this. So a lot of hard work, a lot of effort from the team. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, team. Everyone that are in the chat.
So I had a funny question. I know Firebase has hosting too, and somebody asked me, is this something that can be used like with Appwrite as a full product? Can I use it individually? Like, let's say I just want to host my application. I don't want to use any of other Appwrite's tools. What extent are we going with this? How are we trying to encourage people to use it? And what's the flexibility like? Because I understand that Firebase's hosting feature is more ingrained with their stack. It's kind of like if you're using Firebase, then you're using it, you're using hosting with it together. Whereas I believe we're going the other way. How would you describe that?
Well, I think we're trying to basically fit into the developer workflow and what they need. We like every service in Appwrite, we've built it in a way that's like really modular. We really like to separate things. So also, like we're fanatic around like decoupling and clean architecture and domain-driven design. So for us, like when we build a new product, it has to be completely segmented and decoupled from everything else in Appwrite. And then we're connecting those products with different bridges. Like we create those different small APIs that can really build an ecosystem together. So when we imagine how to build a new product in Appwrite, we're trying to imagine how an indie hacker would use it, and also how a big company or a new customer that might have a very specific problem and do not want to commit to the entire Appwrite ecosystem. So if you want to use Site in general, you can just use it as a standalone service, or you can use it together with authentication, with functions, with databases. And we have all these small, tools, small surprises inside the stack that allow you to really kind of integrate it really, really well. If it's dynamic keys, the API scopes, the JWT, the user information that is always available in your runtime. So I think that's like a huge benefit in using a platform like Appwrite to do a lot more than just Sites. But if you're just looking for a hosting alternative, it will work just fine. You will not notice that you're on a much wider ecosystem than just hosting.
Yeah, that's exciting to hear, because that's weirdly one of the first comments I got is, hey, can I now use this instead of, X platform? And that's where I'm thinking, okay, we're not going to encourage it. We have it there. We're going to see all the other tools that it has, but it's really nice that it's decoupled from everything else. You said a quote on a different live stream. You said something that was interesting. You said, I don't like considering Appwrite as a backend as a service, even though that is a way that we sometimes explain who we are. But I believe this actually fits nicely into that. We're not trying to be an all-in-one platform. We want to give you those tools, but we want to be very careful in separating them. And this is what this feels like right here, where it's a tool that's completely isolated from everything else, but it does really work well with the other ones.
Exactly. And I think today people understand that quote much better with the release of Sites. Because when we look at Appwrite and how we design the different products, sites is a new category for us. Right now, we see that all of the existing Appwrite products, they were actually part of a category we like to call today the build category, where people basically take our tools and build their application and do all of the coding. And now we have a new category, which we call it deploy, that has sites that is really optimized for the web. And who knows, this category might expand itself in the future. And we might even go to different categories because we're working really hard to try and imagine the perfect life cycle for a developer, from the moment of the idea, the moment of the first ideation in a specific team, to going to production, scaling, and then what does it mean to be in production, which is something that, we barely touched today. So we have a long journey, and, just getting to sites, it probably took us 4 years, but we have the open source community on our side, and we're excited to see where next we can go.
We're going to have to talk about some of those features. I'm going to see what I can get out of you. Just for context, Eldad does not know the questions I have, so I'm going to try to push the limits here. So we're going to get to that in a second. But jump into shifting gears here a little bit. I want to talk about Init again real quick because I wanted to give the introduction, but I feel like you can explain it so much better. So why even the word Init? Like, what does that kind of stem from, and why do we call our launch week Init?
Yeah, sure. Init goes really a long way back. We started Appwrite as an open source project, and then we were able to build a small company around it, and that small company was doing a lot of things. We were doing engineering, we were doing dev advocacy, and we also did a lot of marketing, because you can build the greatest product out there, but if nobody knows about it, did you really build a great product? So I think in very early days, we understood, okay, like in order to really succeed, like we have to treat all the different functions equally and give a lot of attention and love and care to each of them. And I think we were really bad at doing marketing. Like we were just noisy and excited, and I guess a lot of people liked it. But we realized like we really need to find some order, some organization in how are we communicating all of the things that we're building together. So Init for us was kind of a way, people really like to call it a lunch week. I don't think it's a lunch week. I like to think of it as the name suggests.
I always prefer launch week.
Yeah, but as the name suggests, Init for me is just the beginning of something new, that we can share something new that we've done. It doesn't have to be a product feature. It doesn't have to be a new product. It can be an initiative that we're doing. It can be something with the open source community. Because I think eventually when you initialize things and you're being proactive, you're able to grow and create value and to help people. So I think that's the origin of the name. And then it really helped us like create a structure of, okay, like how do we make sense out of all of that? When do we build? When do we launch? And how do we communicate all of that? So Init is kind of also a tool and a workflow, but also our way to share something new that we're doing either on ourselves with the core team or together with the Appwrite community.
So Init as in initialize, I got that right, correct?
Yeah, and
like, you're writing like Init, yeah.
The word game together with we use a lot of Init in Appwrite source code, so that was kind of a good intuitive name.
I feel like us nerds are in our own heads sometimes. We have these jokes, but we're like, is anyone else gonna understand this? Like, we have Erin actually, who's in the chat right now. She's one of our team members, and she's part of the, I guess it's like growth, sales, revenue. I guess head of revenue. That's probably the correct term. And I always have to explain these puns, these things that we say. Okay, so Init is, and I have to explain the technical terms because we speak an entirely different language, and we're cracking up in our heads, but everyone else is looking at us all funny.
Yeah, every time we hire someone that is not coming from an engineering background, like it's a struggle to get them to understand, like, why are we being so weird about things? Why do we care about some specific things more than, normal people would reasonably care about them? But it's fun. I think that we created a great culture that really, appreciate everything about engineering, development, building new stuff, creativity, and yeah, we're making a lot of fun at Appwrite.
For sure. So I know people are going to ask about this. We had a slight delay yesterday, and Sites was technically supposed to go live today, well, I guess at 12 a.m. Pacific time, whatever date that we officially had for that. What's the update on that, if you can share? Just because people are going to be questioning this. I know a lot of people have already DM'd me saying, "Hey, I don't see this in my console. When are we going to be ready for that?"
Yeah, sure. So we've opened the waiting list already. We want to make sure that the server do not explode. The team is working to make sure more people can get in. But stay tuned. It's not going to take weeks or months. Like it's really just a matter of days to make sure that we responsibly release this new massive piece of infrastructure into our cloud services.
So
stay tuned.
You heard
it's
that?
Not going to take too long. I promise.
Couple of days, yeah. So Eldad, right after the stream, is going right back to his computer and he's gonna be coding. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, but the version is already out. If anyone is really, really curious and can't wait, you can install the self-hosted solution. It has all of the features. Requires some configuration if you want the full solution. With the Git stuff that are always a struggle. I wish we could do something better there. But yeah, it should work. People can already have a lot of fun with it.
So with that, pricing. I know in our landing page we have it set to free till July. Is that correct? There's a date. I should probably know this information, but I have so many facts crammed in my head.
July 1st. July 1st.
July 1st, we officially announced. So right now, you get to taste it, use it, see what it's like. We work out the kinks, and then we go for it. And I'm pretty excited about some of our marketing efforts that we have going forward with this. We won't hint at anything right now, but you'll see signs on my social medias, on the Twitters.
Yeah, we already got the pricing questions so much, so we made sure, hey guys, let's make sure we have something on the blog. Let's make sure we have something on the pricing page. And some people on Reddit thinks it's something shady. Why don't you reveal the price? So how it works in Appwrite usually, we release a new service. We have a lot of metrics coming in. We need to make sure what's the cost of the service, what's the profit margin that we need to reach, what's the competitor landscape, how are we going to be competitive, and then we can set pricing in a much better way. And pricing is the hardest part in software or in building a company, not in software. Building a company price, also in software, building solutions is super complex. So we want to just make sure we get it better at the first attempt. Usually there's also a second and a third, apologies, but that's how it is. And then we're going to release it. It's not like a top secret. It's not going to cost twice as much as a competitor or anything like that. Doesn't make sense. I've seen some comments. Yeah, you're probably going to charge a lot of money once we start it. That's not the goal. Trust me. It will be counterproductive to make it unreasonably expensive. We want to make it cost efficient for everyone. We want to make sure the developers find the value. And on July 1st, we'll be able to kind of make sure that we have both the best pricing structure and also the total cost, that it's affordable and everyone are happy to use it and see the value in it.
Yeah, it's not your weekend side project where you can just make requests and see them in a second. When you have thousands and thousands of users jumping on using this, there's so much infrastructure that you have to look out for. I don't envy what a lot of you and the team members have to do. I see parts of it, and I'm usually on the testing part of it. And I'm the one that's reporting the bugs usually and little issues and just edge cases you never account for. That to me is always a fun process. So I think anybody that's worked on a project this size would understand that it's never that easy to just announce. That's why we have beta, right? That's why you let people know, you warn them, use it, but not yet.
Yeah, exactly. But I think there is one thing that I'm pretty excited about when it comes to pricing, because people ask us are you going to be cheaper than X? Are you going to be cheaper than Y? How is it going to work? And honestly, it doesn't matter much, because the fact that you can host everything you do in Appwrite, whether it's your databases, authentication, serverless functions, storage, messaging, real time, or now hosting, we're going to replace for people a lot of subscriptions. So I think just in that, I'm really excited for the possibilities, especially for indie hackers, for people that are a bit more price sensitive in a way that need to kind of really maintain their budget. I think Appwrite is going to be super competitive, regardless, the fine details of how much are you going to pay per gigabyte of bandwidth or whatever metric that will be.
What would you say is the biggest sell with this, right? So I'm from my perspective, I see it, we're the all-in-one solution, but how do you see this vision as far as maybe where it's at now and where it's going? How do you present this to the community? What's the exciting part of that?
Yeah, so I think Appwrite has two main things that, what excites me might be different than what we're seeing, but I think what we're seeing is that people are really excited about the all-in-one solution, the ability to just build in one place. No need to switch different SDKs, no need to long, tedious documentations, or to integrate different providers together. That's something that we've already seen from day one with Appwrite. And I think now with sites, like, we're just going to amplify it. A lot of people also call it like tool consolidation, that you're able to minimize stuff to one vendor, which is sometimes great, sometimes not. But I think for a lot of use cases with Appwrite, it's really going to be a game changer. And I mean, the fact that everything is open source, we've released our cloud solution about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And obviously a lot of focus went there. And I think today, it's another proof for the Appwrite community that we're still committed to our origins, to our open source journey. And we have, I think, one of the best open source offering ever to be made, with Appwrite Sites completely available for self-hosting at whatever capacity, and almost with full feature parity.
Yeah, the all-in-one solution, definitely the open source thing too. That's kind of how I see it. There's a question that comes in. I was gonna do questions a little bit later, but I do like this one just because we can address it right away. Is it just dynamic sites? Is it static sites? What kind of websites are we deploying? Backends, front ends, and if we are going to change this in the future to include more, are we?
Yeah, basically all the acronyms that you can think of, SSR, SSG, and so on. At the beginning, when we wanted to launch sites, we were thinking to just go with static hosting at the beginning, but it didn't feel right. We really wanted to have a much more complete solution. So Appwrite Site supports both static, both SSR, incremental, and those stuff are also in support. Some of them will be in support. We also see a lot of requests for stuff that are not classically web. We're going to have some cool announcements, I think day 3, so stay tuned. Here I'm building the hype. And
I like that.
And we've got requests for crazier stuff, like what about PHP, what about Python? And my answer, honestly, Appwrite Sites is built on top of Open Runtime, our engine for serverless computing. It's an open source project. If you guys don't know about it, I'm sure someone from the team can share a link to Open Runtime in the chat. And Open Runtime supports all these runtimes that allow us to have Appwrite functions. So we have .NET, we have PHP, we have Python, we have a lot of them. It's possible. The question is if people want it, and does it make sense? If you guys
how far do we want to go?
Make sure
with
to
it?
let us know.
I like Matei's comment here: SSR, SSG, SPA, ISG, MP4, PDF, JPEG,
Yeah, I mean,
CPR, whatever.
That's so classic to web, right?
Yeah.
Like in web, you have this, you like this complexity.
Every acronym, yeah.
Encouraging the web ecosystem. When building Appwrite, we're seeing all different ecosystems. Web is definitely the one with all the acronyms, a lot of libraries, a lot of extensions. But we love the web. That's what makes the web great also.
So I asked you this one question. I guess I lied. I did prep you a little bit, but just this one. I wanted to dive in under the hood, and I want to see how far you want to go with this or how comfortable you are. A lot of tools are basically wrappers around AWS. Can we talk a little bit about Appwrite and how Sites is built? Like, what's our infrastructure? I mean, what are we a wrapper around in this case?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, these things are super dynamic. We constantly change and have different philosophies. But I think since day one, it was really important to us to have a lot of control over our infrastructure and technology because we need to self-host it. And we also need a lot of control in order to create a really tailored developer experience. So that was kind of like an obsession in Appwrite to really focus on both developer experience and as a result of it, also to have a bit more control. So Sites is built in a really cool way, which I'm going to try and limit myself because I can take the entire call just talking about those geeky stuff. But Open Runtime is obviously a big part of it, and that allows us basically to have all the serverless capabilities, which is really unique. A lot of companies struggle with it or have hundreds of engineers to deal with this serverless infrastructure, and this is something we've been invested in for, I think, 3 or 4 years, maybe since Appwrite 0.7 or something like that back in the day, where we really made the shift, like, okay, we're going to take this serverless thing really seriously, and we're going to build that infrastructure. Now, on top of that, to build sites, we had so many releases. Actually, I don't think people realize how many product releases we had that were just a preparation to this moment. From the integration, to make sure that all of the Appwrite infrastructure is protected by DDoS, to make sure that we have the Appwrite network, multi-regions, our edge network,
Right.
which we released, I think, a month ago or so.
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago. That was exciting.
Yeah, it was a key milestone in order to allow this release. Because we really wanted to give the best solution. It's not about just sticking a box or saying, oh, we have hosting, we also have, storage, data. It's about also having a really wide solution, but also making sure that each of those products has like the proper depth, so people can actually use it. So with sites, it's the edge network, it's the integration with the domains and everything, and all of the network infrastructure that our team had to deal with DNS servers and stuff like that, traditionally, like a backend as a service product would not need to get anywhere close to this stuff. So we had to build a lot of infrastructure and tools and test them, benchmark them, make sure they have all the security credentials and certificates that are needed in order to go live with a solution like that. So that took us about, I think almost a year. I'm really bad at times, time flies.
We're engineers. We live in a cave, so we don't really can't really tell time or what season it is. It's all the same to us.
I just opened the curtain just for you, so we have some good lighting. Otherwise, it's with my hoodie on in a dark room.
So every if you want to know where we're going next, you kind of look at past releases, right? And you're 100% about that. We're 100% correct about that. Where every release is like a build up to it. Like you can't have one without the other. So you're in a way creating that path right now. So where is Sites going to lead us? I have some ideas on where this is going. We have some very exciting announcements coming soon that I'm like ecstatic about, but obviously I can't share anything yet. But I think it'll go very well with Sites. So I think that's going to be
You're
fun.
building up for the next event, I see.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Got to start selling now.
Yeah,
as far as like the preparation, so I have I might have to break this down because this can be a long-winded question, but I also want to hear about the thought process and how we decided at Appwrite where we go next as far as a product release. But before I get to that, I want to talk about where Appwrite was from day one. Like, I think you started working on it officially in 2019, but to a lot of people that don't know, Eldad has started working at Appwrite way before then. It was an open source project that he would work at, or he would use within his other company, right? You were a CTO at your past company, and you kind of built Appwrite out of necessity, as you always say. But let's say from initiation day, when Appwrite was officially its thing, how has that vision changed? Like, did it morph into what you're expecting, or have we pivoted quite a bit from there? Because I joined in, I hopped on the train halfway through here, so I've already seen a lot of those iterations go through.
I think, well, Appwrite started probably, in my mind. I always say the Appwrite started in my mind 12, 15 years ago. Every day that I had, to write code and suffer a little bit, the picture started unfolding. Okay, maybe we should do stuff like this. Maybe, it would have been comfortable if we had this, centralized API to just do all of this stuff instead of writing it over and over again. But I think we're not very far away from where the vision was in day one. But we definitely made a lot of adjustments, and we're making a lot of adjustments, especially because the industry is moving around us and we're seeing different changes. So if 2 years ago you would talk with me and I would tell you, we're going to build this service and this service, the priorities has definitely changed. We also learn a lot from talking with people and seeing how people use the platform. So that has also been a big factor in adjusting where we started and where we are today and where we're going to head next, because it's mind-blowing how many insights you can get from just looking at how the platform is being used. And today, luckily, we have more than close to 300,000 developers on Appwrite, on cloud, more on self-hosted. We don't know for sure because we don't have any sufficient tracking there, but we know a lot of people are also doing self-hosting. And you get so many insights from talking to people to seeing like how people are using the different services, how people, what features do they want, and talking to customers, like seeing where is the real pain. And also, obviously, as a company, you also have other new consideration that we didn't have when we were an open source company, because you need to make sure that you also prioritize things that can keep the lights on.
Yeah, that's the not fun part about startup world, right? There's the things you want to work on, then there's the things that you have to do to make money. I believe the story with Airbnb was they sold Cheerios at one point during
Yeah,
like it was like during a presidential election. It was like Bush and who was it? No, it was Obama McCain. They had cereal that they were selling just to keep the lights on. Like I promise you, they didn't want to sell cereal, but that's where they had to go with it. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that this feedback loop definitely has impacted it a lot. I'm assuming AI has really shifted that. I mean, I know internal discussions. Those are
yeah. And I think Appwrite is one company, I think one of not too many, that is really careful in the way that we think about AI. Because I think if we look back like 2 years ago, there was a lot of hype, but we didn't see a lot of products that actually provide value. And we didn't want to just change the tagline on the website like some companies and say like Appwrite is the backend as a service powered by AI, or kind of
some vague statement.
I'll keep my language, but we really didn't want to be that kind of company to just do it for the sake of it, so everyone can feel like, oh, we're following the hype. The hype is important. The hype is there, and I think in the last 6 months we've seen some major development that really, for me, changed the game. I've been using some of these recently growing tools, and it's amazing the new capabilities that they have. And I think the picture in how we can imagine the reduction of friction from taking an idea to production. We have a metric for that for people that don't know. We call it time to production, TTP at Appwrite. How fast can we help people to go from just opening an account to actually seeing some production like scale? Sometimes it's very hard to measure, but we have some vague definitions that allows us to measure the trends and if they improve over time. So I think we can figure out a lot of new ideas in the coming months on how we can reduce that TTP time and make developers more happy, more productive, and more successful, make their businesses more successful. And we have a really great infrastructure on top of it. And I think that's also a key, that we're seeing a lot of success with AI companies that are mostly doing like some people would install them and say ChatGPT wrappers. I think there's more to it, but they're not necessarily backed with hard to build technology. And I think it's interesting to see like how this space evolves in the next few months.
Yeah, I was always one of those people that's a little bit skeptical with the AI stuff. Not skeptical in the sense of like I didn't think there was much to it. I definitely thought it was a little bit overhyped, and I still have my areas where I push back. Like to me, ChatGPT isn't the all-knowing, wise wonder of the world. But we had a moment actually, me and you, about 3 months ago, where you messaged me and I think you said, "Hey, have you used Cursor before?" And at that point, no, because I never even used Copilot. I'm pretty comfortable with my own stuff, and you told me try it. It's going to change the way you code. And you said something like, "There's coding before Cursor and after Cursor." And I think I tried it like 2 days later, and I couldn't agree more with you. And that to me was such a revolutionary moment that, like, I think you said you submitted an entire PR with a couple hundred lines of code, or was it thousands, using Cursor's, basically, super smart autocomplete, where you're not vibe coding here. You know very well what you're doing. You're a great engineer, but the level of speed that it's added. I know that I've been pretty hyped about it. Are you still on that, I guess, what would we call it, honeymoon phase with Cursor in AI? Or
I think the entire way to describe, I think, developers with AI in the last few months is like a roller coaster, because we're in this experimental stage, like we're seeing one thing, then we're trying to adjust it. We kind of mess it a little bit, and then we're trying to adjust it again, and then it's amazing again. And then like we fail at something, and we don't really yet have the practices of how to properly interact, and where are like the barriers of what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And that's going to keep evolving and change as the models become better. So it's like chaos right now, but it's amazing. I don't have as much time today to code as much as I would like. And I was testing some of these tools, and it's mind blowing. I think I finished like a PR that would take me 3 weeks in like a weekend, vibe coding and and watching Netflix at the same time. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, really, I feel like a super engineer. But it's not quite there yet. It will become much, much better. It's already good enough to create a lot of value and justify a lot of what we're seeing. But I think I like to, I'm coining the term durable vibe in the team. When will we have good enough tools that are going to help us see value over time and not just at the beginning of the process? And I think what we're seeing right now is like a really, really, really good value at the beginning of the process, but it kind of fades away and becomes more complex and less valuable over time. I think this is an area that will be really, really interesting to start exploring. How can we create a durable vibe? That's what I've tried to coin in the team, because I don't have any other way to explain it to the team.
Yeah, so just for anybody that doesn't know, I think the context that you're trying to give is platforms like Bolt or V0. It's tools that give you that boilerplate, but it's not really practical in the sense of long-term coding, right? It gives you like a template, but then the rest of it you're still doing yourself. And you're saying, how can we maybe integrate this into our current process? And I think that's a perfect example of the question that I asked Eldad a couple minutes ago here was, how has your vision shifted from the beginning of where Appwrite was? This is that feedback loop. And I think AI has had one of the biggest impacts on how developers build, even how developers learn. I'm in the education space as far as like some of the things that I do on my own. People are building and learning differently, and I think the genie is out of the bottle. I've noticed it when Francesco Chula actually posted today about an 18-year-old not knowing what Stack Overflow is. Like, it's shifted that much where AI has impacted that, and the process has changed.
I couldn't agree more, and I think we're seeing even something that is also very interesting. There's the question whether it's going to eliminate junior developers or what is it going to make to senior developers. And I think we're seeing positive impact, at least at Appwrite, from our own point of view. We're seeing a positive impact all over the world, because senior developers are becoming way more productive and faster. And then juniors, interns are able to produce stuff that usually they would struggle a lot more with. And you're starting to wonder, oh my God, like, they're doing a really good job. Sometimes it becomes a bit more complex, and I think like having the background in how to operate these tools and what you're trying to get out of them is still very much valuable. But the tools that we're using are changing, and the way that we need to think about how to integrate our work with them must change as well. And it's like a cliche, but you will be left behind if you don't adopt this tool. I truly believe in that, as much as a cliche as it might sound. We're in an age, I think, that's like the biggest disruptive technology that we've been able to witness in our lifetime, and even a bit before.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's the whole junior thing. It's funny how that's completely shifted. I think juniors are expected to know a lot more, because historically a junior developer was the one writing that mundane code. They were writing the things that you didn't have time for. It wasn't anything that you would trust too much. You wouldn't trust them with the whole project or anything like that. You would say, hey, write these within these specs. Now you can give that to AI. So what does that do to the junior developer? I don't think it eliminates them. I think it actually makes them more powerful, but the expectation has shifted. And you talked about being left behind. I think we're in a stage where it's still open-ended. I think right now we're trying to see how it's going to fit into this world. We're starting to see that morph, but I think it's going to be that turtle analogy, where a lot of AI tools, a lot of AI companies are going to pop up, and then you're going to start seeing some outcompete, rise to the top, and then you're going to see where that develops from there. But the junior thing, yeah, it's the expectation that I have for junior developers, even when I'm interviewing, is completely different from before. Before it was, hey, can you tell me what hoisting is in JavaScript, answer these few questions, and now it's, you need to know this stuff, but can you use these tools? Because I expect you to be productive.
I think execution and processes have become much more important than your actual knowledge. It feels maybe like, when we were in high school, we would be taught so many things that we would never use this in real life. And now we will say, like, we have Google. Why do we need to know this stuff? So you need to know the basics, but you don't need to know every fine detail as long as you're able to extract that and feed yourself with the relevant information when it becomes needed. But definitely, we still need that background. We still need to know how things works behind the scenes.
Yeah, Ebenezer actually, one of our developer advocates, wrote an article about that. The difference between AI and low code, because I think low code was something that really impacted the market, back in 2011, 12, when like sites were like Wix came out. All these low code tool builders were a little bit different than AI because now with AI, you're working with the underlying technology, right? With low code, you have engineers that know what they're doing. They build in security. They build in everything that needs to be done there, and you just kind of plug and play. Whereas with AI, you're in the engine. So you have the ability to mess everything up. And I've had AI suggest some terrible things, not validate code through inputs. Like it's a little bit more risky. So that's kind of interesting to me. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the security markets and a lot of people getting paid to clean up vibe coders' messes. So that's going to be fun to see in the future.
Yeah, there's also the question, I think, we're talking about engineering. Who are going to be the engineers of the future? Are they still going to be the classic engineers that we know today, just with superpowers? Are we going to see less technical people? I've seen opinions here and there. I've seen some, I think someone shared on Twitter, on X, something about MySQL from 4 years ago, that they developed this protocol for non-technical people so they can query the database with stuff. And now,
now we have MCP servers to write SQL queries.
Show me a non-technical person that wants to use MySQL. So
yeah, the expectation on the brain is different.
It's a retrospect that just helps us understand that we don't really understand everything right now. But time will go by, things will start to make sense. And like you said, like we'll see companies come and fall, and the direction will start, setting itself, and the industry will change.
Yeah, the SQL analogy, when we released our MCP server, the demo I put out was querying the database and basically exporting a CSV file. But it really occurred to me that, hey, in the future, you still might want to know how to query your database, how to work with a Postgres database or whatever you're working with. But I really see this analogy where you can just, in theory, write, human readable words, I guess, right? Like give me the top 100 items that sold over X amount from my database. And the query would be written, and SQL's easy to read. Like it's not like any other programming language where it's completely unknown outside of a couple of special syntax. It's select, database name or table name, and then what you want. So I definitely see the developer market opening up where you're going to have more people working with these kind of databases, but there's going to be adapters built for developers like that. I think there's going to be the old school developers will work more on tooling. Like we have engineers at Appwrite. We're building a low code tool, in a way, a low code tool, I guess, for developers. But yet we have the developers that need to know how to put that together. So I think those more organic type of engineers are going to be working on the tooling as opposed to the end product. I think that's kind of the variation that I've seen here.
Yeah, I really like the way that you're looking at this, because we've seen it across history that, people are not replaced. It's just like that people with deeper knowledge usually are free to deal with harder problems. And then there is a lot more opportunity for more people to solve other problems and focus on creativity and stuff that humans are really, really good at. Humans are not really good at memorizing stuff or, doing very, very programmed stuff. But creativity and in those areas, that's where we shine. And we have a lot of people that can focus on those areas once technology abstracts a lot of the complexity.
I had a friend who I worked with when I first started building, just coding actually in general, and we sold a website for $15,000. It was a 6-pager website for like a local business. You're never going to sell that today. Like that, I think is an example of the shift. Now, those developers that can build that would either use a low-code tool or we would build the low-code tool.
Yeah, How much time did it take you to build those 6 pages?
It was probably about a week. I would say it wasn't too bad. It was terrible
How much
design, but
time
the
will it
client
take
was
you
willing to.
today?
Oh gosh, I can spin that up in I would say a couple hours if I want to get it done. Like if I want it functional and deployed, a couple hours. But I mean, you throw that into some kind of AI builder if you really want to build some templates and get that going.
Here is abstraction. We
Yeah,
can get
exactly.
to do more in less time, and cost is becoming cheaper, and more people can enjoy the benefits of stuff that used to be really, really hard.
Yeah, it's democratizing it. It's basically now everybody's able to participate, and I know that that can scare some people. You know, it's like a job security. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's
you
a
can be
big
really good.
discussion.
You can be good, or you can write really bad code to where your company's afraid of letting you go because you have full access to it. Now that's not so possible because it's a little bit easier to switch gears.
Yeah, you're disrupting existing markets and you're changing them, and people suddenly need to figure out like how to adjust. But then on the other end, you're creating so many other opportunities, and we do see progress. Maybe that's a very optimistic way to think about it. And with AI and how far we can get it, maybe we can also look at more pessimistic scenarios. I prefer to look at the optimistic ones, but we're in interesting times.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to switch gears a little bit here, and this is a question I know you don't like, and I personally dislike it. So in tech, anytime you build with a tool, let's say I go with React and PHP, what's the first question I get from another engineer? Usually it's why this? Why React? Why PHP? And that one always annoyed me because anything I use, somebody's going to ask why. So instead of asking you the question of why PHP, I want to give you a moment to rebuttal and almost give them a why not, but maybe explain that logic because I think the logic was very simple. It was what you wanted to write it in, and it worked, right? But what's the pushback to any criticism against it?
Well, it's really hard because developers are like tribes. It doesn't matter what you answer;
Yes,
they're all
very
set
tribal.
on their tribe, and there's also a lot of incentives hidden in our minds that we're leaning towards a specific ecosystem, and it benefits us. So we're always biased. Like it's not an objective question to any developer. Why did we choose our specific tool stack? Mainly because I was doing it for fun. I was really, really good at a specific technology. I enjoyed it. I mastered it. I was probably too lazy at the time to switch to any other technology, and I didn't see any problem with it because you don't want to make decisions about your technology based solely on hype. I'm not saying that hype is not justified because there are other considerations like the market. Will you be able to hire people? Will you be able to scale this solution? But I think back then with PHP, when we started Appwrite, there was really we had a really strong PHP ecosystem. We still do. Actually, we're at 2025, and ironically, PHP is becoming much, much more popular
We
than
love
it
the
ever
Laravel
was.
people. The Laravel people made
Laravel,
it cool again. We love it. This is
Laravel
this is
is
like when
really cool.
Macklemore made thrift shops cool, right? We all wear old clothes now, and it's popular.
Yeah,
Sorry to cut you off.
Laravel made PHP cool even back then in the day. Laravel has been around for a long time. It got into the consensus again,
They got
and
a
it's
second
really
wind. They gave it a second wind, I guess. That's probably the better way to put it.
exactly, and it's been around for so long. It's super stable. The performance of PHP is really great. A lot of people don't know that, especially with some of the new tooling. It's not what it used to be, and it's evolving. And a lot of people that usually trash on a language have never used it more than once, like 10 years ago. And I can like sometimes it's another discussion about people that criticize technologies, not just coding languages, but a lot of the feedback that you guys see online. It's clear. I can see it clearly when I use a specific tool or a few tools that like some of the people that are giving reviews like have never actually used them at any significant scale. So we use it. It works well. We have a really, really thriving ecosystem. Appwrite is built today on a lot more technologies than just that. Although it's our core technology, we started with it, and yeah, we're having fun. All languages are equal in our eyes. And our team is hustling around with any possible coding language every day. Some of them are great. Some of them has things that are not that great. PHP also have a lot of bad stuff, a lot of great stuff. And when you get the perspective of using so many technologies because you're building a tool for developers, you get to see that basically every language has those quirks and also some great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't slowed us down. Like you said, I just quoted you. It works well.
No, even the opposite.
It gets the job done.
Yeah, we have really solid foundations from day one. We have a really interesting ecosystem. If anyone is into it, they can go to our contribution guide. We have a really, really interesting ecosystem. I think that's something we should share more.
Yeah. I put a post out about this, and I've noticed anybody that's ever asked that question, there's cases where it's genuine, right? It's not like if I asked you why PHP, and I think in our interview I asked you why PHP actually, and it wasn't in the why not this other tool. It was more of like what's the thinking behind it? Is it just where you go with it? Like, is it just what you're working on, or was there a specific reason? And I think you answered to me. You said you said something like, I don't care about specific languages or frameworks. Like, you'll just do whatever's there. Like, you don't consider yourself a PHP developer. That's what it was. You said, I don't consider myself that. And I thought that was a really good answer.
Yeah, I mean, just a language that does the work. I think what's really important is like what products are you building and that they're working really well. And I don't think that was ever a blocker because of the coding language that we chose, at least not in our specific use case. In some use cases, it might be a different story. And I think a good system in large scale in production is a system that also knows how to combine different technologies together, which is something that we're doing more and more and more, where it makes sense.
Yeah. I want to jump into Q&A actually with the audience. So if anybody has any questions, I know we've kind of pulled up a few here. Any specific questions, we can go personal, Appwrite specific, whatever it is. If you want to, go ahead and leave them in the chat. But before we do that, I want to ask you some questions myself, just one or two here. While we wait for that, Eldad, as far as people in tech or even outside of tech, who's somebody that you look up to that inspires you, that maybe influences your decision-making, your style as far as how you lead the company?
I think a lot of people. It's really hard to name one. I think in engineering, we can look at both different companies. Some of them are some of our competitors that are doing really, really great job that, you can take a lot of inspiration from them. Some of them are great engineers. We talked a little bit about Laravel. Laravel is a good example. Laravel was a big inspiration to how a lot of the Appwrite foundations are being built. Although we don't use Laravel, ironically. But Laravel is a big inspiration. And
how about people, just to make sure that we, like people in tech specifically, not companies?
So if we can be specific, we can mention Taylor Otwell from Laravel and many other. I don't want to make anyone else feel bad.
No, this is good. It's funny because you can learn more about a person, but based on either what they don't say, I guess, in some scenarios, but also who they kind of look up to and maybe associate with. I don't want to get into like a personal level if you feel uncomfortable with that, but it does give us an idea of how you see yourself as a leader and what influences you, because we get influenced by that. But yeah, it's fine. We don't have to dive too far into it. But Taylor Otwell, so I'll have to tell him that next time I see him. I met him in Miami actually during React Miami. It was a fun person.
You should arrange a meeting.
Yeah. So we saw a few questions come in here. Somebody's asking about the next Appwrite hackathon. Well, lucky for you, I brought this up to Eldad actually, and we were talking about a Appwrite Sites hackathon. Basically, some of the rules would be you build whatever in certain specs, we'll set those, but the one rule would have to be that you deploy to sites. When it's got probably after it's more stable. Eldad, what do you think?
Yeah, we definitely should have a hackathon. It's already been discussed. It's already in plan. Once the site is out and it's a bit more stable after a few weeks, we should definitely have something ready.
So maybe this summer, if that goes. Once we have it stable, pricing is announced, then maybe we can go at that point. Yeah, another one, I saw a funny meme about this one on Twitter, but Appwrite Sites available self-hosted?
Yes.
I saw someone post, it was like host Appwrite on Coolify so you can host with Appwrite or something like that. It was like 3 layers deep.
Yeah, I mean, all of our messaging around this release was like it's open source, and for many people that would mean automatically self-hostable, but we're not living that age. So in some of actually the messaging we wrote, like it's really self-hostable, it's really open source, like you can host it, you can try it out. And we're excited to see what people build with it.
Nice. Yeah. There was another one. I'm missing them. I'm trying to keep the chat. If anyone wants to repeat them, if I feel like I missed them, maybe you can throw them my way, or somebody at Appwrite can DM me. I have Discord open here. 1 second. You like scrolled for me real quick. Eldad, if you see something here, that'd be awesome if we can just point those out. I want to make sure that if anybody has those, we at least can address them. The question is backend PHP code open sourced? It's all open source?
Everything is open source, almost everything. In Appwrite, mainly, we try to have good feature parity between cloud and self-hosted, but things that are usually more likely to be used by bigger organizations that are around like really large scale, high redundancy, distribution are usually cloud only. Things that you can find your way to hack with some DevOps skills would probably not be open source features. So I think a good example is like backups as a service. You can take backups on your self-hosted, and that's like your choice to self-host and manage the infrastructure. So you don't really need backups as a service. So that's a competitive advantage of cloud, that you get a lot more convenience. So this is kind of the framework that we're going by now. It's sometimes like there are some exceptions, but we're trying to make sure that we keep a healthy balance of having a really solid open source core edition that people can use and test, but also to make sure that cloud has some competitive advantage and can make sure that the lights are on for both the Appwrite company, the Appwrite community, and our open source edition.
Yeah, there's kind of a funny line that you have to draw there. Like certain products just can't be open source fully. Like maybe the code is open source, but the product itself, right? Like with messaging, you can't, like that has to be, we would give you the infrastructure, but we're not going to be able to just allow you to start sending, like it doesn't work that way. Like here's our token, here, go use messaging and to Twilio or whatever you're using under the hood.
Obviously, it has to make sense, and it's part of the hardest areas of our job to make sure we strike that good balance. And that good balance is sometimes something that is not favoring the open source community, not directly, but I think people after a while that working with us really understand that even if we don't benefit the open source community today, it's because we need to make sure that this thing keeps going. And a lot of it is making sure that the Appwrite company behind the scenes can also stay profitable and strong and sustainable, so we can keep this operation going and growing and have more amazing product releases and expand the ecosystem itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're coming up on the last 2 minutes here, and I want to get a little bit more personal again. I got one question that I want to close this out with. So, Eldad, you started, I believe you said at 13. You said a funny thing on Daily Dev, not a funny thing, but it was an interesting thing. You said you got started in open source when you were 13 years old because you didn't have a credit card, you didn't have money to buy certain tooling. So open source gave you that in basically, and that's why you're so passionate about it and you contribute to it. I'm a little bit jealous because I got started way later in my life. I wish I started at 13. I think I was blowing up mailboxes when I was 13 years old. I wasn't that serious. But looking back at yourself now, I mean, it was a great time, but not so productive. Blew off a couple of fingernails, that sort of thing. Yeah. So looking back at yourself, then I want you to give yourself and anybody that's also in that position, anybody in their, let's say, early 20s, even before that, starting their career, like what would you say to yourself and what would you recommend somebody focus on in that state? So we're just kind of assuming the younger college age, pre-college, or just getting close to their 30s.
Okay, he really didn't prepare me for these questions.
I didn't. That's why I like to ask it. You can take your time.
Stay away from personal stuff. But no, it's fine. It's fine. You're getting me out of my comfort zone. That's good. It's personal growth. I think it's a really good question. I was thinking about it as you were asking it, and it's kind of funny. I think the advice that I would give to my younger self is probably the advice that I would give myself today, which is probably trust the process and enjoy the process. And I think that's something really, really important, and we tend to forget about it quite easily. Our day-to-day is so busy, hectic, a lot of pressure from so many directions, and we need to kind of pause. And I'm doing what I love. It's a process. We need to learn how to appreciate the different steps of it, and not just constantly chase like the end goal, this like big, far away end goal, but really enjoy what we're doing and appreciate, the small milestones. And that's something you know that we have, for example, in our company, we have in our Discord server, we have a Discord server for our company, and we have a wins channel, which we constantly encourage people, celebrate the small wins, appreciate your work, it's very easy for us as humans, I feel, to constantly focus on the bad and criticize ourselves and think how to become better.
Right.
And, I'm a perfectionist, so I always look at the bad and how we can get better. And it's really healthy for me to stop and also give some time to focus on the good and not constantly on the bad. And also recognize that you'll be disappointed with a lot of things, and it's fine because it's a process to become better and have personal growth.
I love that answer. I look back at my early 20s and I worked a lot. I got married very young, and I just remember being very stressed out all the time. I had a lot of responsibility on me, but then I look back at the agency that I started. Again, this is over a decade ago now. I see certain pictures, videos we worked on as a company, and I miss those times. But when I was in those times, I remember being, I was miserable. I know that a lot of my employees had a lot of fun because we had an office and a lot of young people just having a great time. But I wish I did that more, and I love that advice. Trusting the process is definitely true. You can't get that. You can't want that satisfaction too early on. You have to understand that this is a cycle you have to go through, and over time you'll see it. But when you're young, you never see that, right? Because a year feels like a lifetime, and then you get to my age in my 30s now. Time goes a little bit faster, but I love that. Definitely wish I enjoyed it more, and I try to do that more often right now. And I love what you do at Appwrite, even with our company camps. You really make sure it's an experience. Everyone has fun with it. The team really does get along together. It's a great time to even be part of this company. So, Eldad, thank you for joining. I really, really enjoyed talking to you about this stuff. I mean, I can go very deep with these conversations, and maybe we'll pull you in for another one. You're a little bit more reserved, but you have very profound thoughts. I've had those evenings where you and I would, stay up late at camp and we would talk, and there's a lot to you that I think we need to uncover because you do some cool things, but you're so humble about it, and you just give the credit to everyone else, it seems like. And it was a good time talking to you, though.
Thank you. Don't make me blush.
All right. Well, with that being said, everybody, we have Init coming up tomorrow as well. We're doing, I believe it's a demo tomorrow with Aditya. We'll see how we have to work that out, though, because with sites not being fully ready, we might have to change that up. But we have a full week ahead of us. Make sure if you're online, if you're on Product Hunt and you have an account, be sure to give us an upvote. I believe we are the product of the day, and it would mean the world to us if we can keep that. So at this point, we have a strong lead, but we can definitely use the support. So if you have not upvoted on Product Hunt, make sure to do that. Leave us a comment there. It would mean the world. And we will see you all tomorrow. So take care.